In triple aspect, Witches of Macbeth and A Song of Ice and Fire by Shakespeare of Thrones. Witches, one of the most easily recognizable archetypes in literature, yet transmutable into so many varying forms. Old, young, wise, prophetic, repulsive, tempting, ugly, beautiful. For every one witch characteristic, there seems to be a corresponding opposite. Macbeth's three witches are old and ugly hags, endowed with the gift of prophecy. They begin and end the play, indeed serving as the centerpiece of the story, as they feed Macbeth's ambition. Lady Macbeth is, likewise, a witch figure. She is young and mortal, bereft of prophetic powers, but aligns herself with the witches and has seductive power as she impels her husband to do wicked deeds. In A Song of Ice and Fire, there are many more types of witches. Melisandre comes to mind as the most prominent plot-driving witch in the story, but there is also Maggie the Frog, Mirri Maz Duur, the Ghost of Highheart, Lady Stoneheart, and even Cersei. Quite the collection of sundry characters, and yet they are all witches or witchy in some way. The common thread between these women appears to be their power, whether magical or not, in addition to their propensity to reject societal expectations of idealized femininity. Let us boil down the cauldron a bit. The witchy hell broth reduces to a corruption of three female archetypes that ASOIAF readers are very familiar with: maiden, mother, and crone. That is to say, the witch presents as the maiden, the mother, or the crone in role or appearance, but with a corrupted, flipped version of her fundamental nature. The maiden is innocent and pure, but the maiden witch is a seductive temptress. The mother is nurturing, but the mother witch is poisonous. The crone is a wise and trustworthy old lady, but the crone witch's prophetic wisdom is cloaked in riddles. Such conclusions are at the crossroads of literary analysis and psychoanalysis, and that's no accident. Archetypes are figures that are important in both literature and psychological theory. Not all writers consider the psychological implications of the archetypes they use, but William Shakespeare and George R.R. Martin certainly do. The psychoanalytical level in their stories is like a pulsating bass line beneath the richly woven themes and structure, bonding the reader with the story on a deeply personal, visceral level. Going forward in this essay, let us take a closer look at the witches in Macbeth and A Song of Ice and Fire, determine their alignment as maiden, mother, or crone, and discuss the psychological impact of this extremely fascinating female archetype. First, considering the witch in terms of three sub-archetypes, let us talk about the importance of things in three. The number 3 can represent many fundamental human concepts of the world: heaven, earth, and hell, birth, life, and death, past, present, and future, id, ego, and superego. It's a power number that appears richly in myth and religion. Hecate, the triple form goddess. The three fates who spin, measure, and cut the thread of life. The Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. In Macbeth, the three witches often speak three prophecies at a time. In ASOIAF, the faith of the seven is seven aspect, but really there are two gendered groups of three and one non-gendered. In a way, the witch is a very similar archetype to the stranger, a catch-all archetype for those who don't fit into or have fallen from the other roles. However, the witch is gendered female, and so she takes on the role of the maiden, mother, or crone as she subverts the feminine qualities associated with each of those aspects. So, before delving into deeper analysis of the maiden witch, mother witch, and crone witch, let us sort the most prominent witchy characters for Macbeth and ASOIAF. Some might embody characteristics of more than one type of witch, but all present with one dominant subtype, as indicated in the chart on your screen. Melisandre is a dominant maiden-witch with characteristics of mother-witch and crone-witch. Maggie is a through-and-through crone-witch. Miri Mazdur is a crone-witch with mother-witch characteristics. The Ghost of Highheart is also a pure crone-witch. Lady Stoneheart is a mother-witch, and Cersei is also a mother-witch, but with some maiden-witch tendencies. In Macbeth, the three witches are the ultimate crone witches, and Lady Macbeth is a maiden witch with hints of the mother witch. Now, some might choose to class Old Nan as a witch. Her tales of yore parallel and foreshadow events in ASOIAF in a way that feels almost supernatural. Old Nan's stories are a testament to her wisdom and her alignment as a pure crone archetype, but she never explicitly delivers them as prophecies. A crone witch must have the gift of prophecy. It's what transforms wisdom into something more powerful. Of course, Macbeth and ASOIAF aren't the only works in which the three witch subtypes appear. The concept of the witch in triple aspect has been perpetuated by myth, fairy tales, Disney, and while sometimes those witches are very interesting characters, at other times they just feel flat, cartoonish, and sloppily written. Thankfully, Shakespeare and Martin are not sloppy writers. The witch contextualizes rather than sensationalizes the plot. Patriarchal ideas about gender are interrogated rather than embraced. The craft of the story writing is heightened by thoughtful, purposeful use of archetypes. Let us continue to explore that and more by delving deeper into the psychoanalytical roles of the maiden witch, the mother witch, and the crone witch. The maiden witch. Slender she was, graceful, taller than most knights, with full breasts and narrow waist and a heart-shaped face. Men's eyes that once found her did not quickly look away, not even a maester's eyes. Many called her beautiful. She was not beautiful. She was red, and terrible, and red. A Clash of Kings, prologue. The maiden witch archetype possesses the maiden's beauty and her allure. However, the maiden is also virtuous, innocent, virginal, beautiful, qualities that charm and captivate in a courtly, proper way. By contrast, the witch flips the maiden archetype, and those innocent charms become darkly mirrored as seductive power. As a testament to her erotic magical powers, Melisandre tempts Stannis, who is otherwise an almost asexual character. However, as seen from Maester Crescent's narrative, there's something about Melisandre that's not beautiful at all. There's something quite terrible about her. This juxtaposition of beauty and terror is reminiscent of a quote from the opening scene of Macbeth. "Fair is foul, and foul is fair, hover through fog and filthy air." Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 1. Fair is foul and foul is fair fuses opposites. What's sinister is also benevolent. What's beautiful is also ugly. It's interesting how Macbeth receives the prophecy from the witches, but Lady Macbeth is the one who persuades him into pursuing it, encouraging him to look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Again, here is the fusion of opposites. Something beautiful hiding something evil, which parallels the concept of the maiden witch. There is also a lot of sexual innuendo in this line, and many stage and film productions show Lady Macbeth straddling Macbeth while she delivers it. Lady Macbeth also portrays characteristics of the mother witch, which will be discussed very soon, but like Melisandre, she is predominantly a maiden witch for her role as the seductive woman who instigates evil deeds and for her sexually charged language. It's this ambiguity of beauty versus ugliness which not only contributes to a feeling of apprehension and dread, but parallels themes of good versus evil and, on a deeper level, the equivocation of the soul. The maiden-witch stirs in us this inner disquietude. Her erotic power makes her all the more beautiful. Her beauty makes her power seem all the more sinister. The mother witch. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked the nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 7. Even though this monologue from Lady Macbeth is her only reference to motherhood, it's a shocking and horrifying vision of a mother witch, a woman who rejects nurturing qualities in favor of behaviors that are violent and harmful. The mother witch might or might not have magical powers, but it is her subversion and perversion of the mother figure that makes her a witch. We see the mother witch in many fairy tales in Disney: the evil stepmother in Cinderella, the evil queen from Snow White, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, even Cruella de Vil, who preys on little puppies. Probably the most iconic representation of the mother witch in ASOIAF is Lady Stoneheart. In the literal sense of the word, it is awesome to witness the rise of Lady Stoneheart, a wrathful, revenge-driven husk of Catelyn Stark. Death is the driving force behind this transformation, but even before Catelyn's death there are hints of Lady Stoneheart. The Stark matriarch is successful and generally happy within the patriarchal structure of Westeros, but not when the rules of that system are broken and she ends up with the short end of the stick, for example, raising her husband's bastard. Catelyn is a fantastic character and well beloved by many, but it is also no surprise that a lot of readers absolutely loathe her, largely because they associate her with an evil stepmother character. As mentioned before, these witchy archetypes can evoke very visceral reactions. But Catelyn doesn't fully yield to a venomous nature until she has the most important thing stripped from her as a mother: her children. Right after Robb dies, Catelyn kills Walder Frey's disabled son, her first real act as a mother witch. When she rises from death, the transformation is complete. She is Lady Stoneheart. Another example of the mother witch is Cersei. She might be a loving mother to her own children, but towards Sansa, who looks to her as a surrogate mother, she is venomous. Perhaps the prophecy Cersei received as a child partially shaped this behavior. The crone-witch Maggie the Frog dashed young Cersei's hopes as the maiden and mother she wished to be. Now, as Maggie's prophecies come true and Cersei loses her identity as a mother, like Catelyn, she becomes more enraged and vengeful, not to mention jealous of younger, more beautiful women. The quote from Lady Macbeth at the beginning of this section seems to suggest that she too was once a mother, and yet there is no other reference to her child in the play. All that can be assumed is that the child died. Lady Stoneheart, Cersei, assuming her children all die in the books as they have in the show, and Lady Macbeth form their own trio of mother witches who have lost their children, lost their identification as mothers, and henceforth gravitate towards the witch archetype in rage, grief, and frustration. However, Lady Macbeth has more in common with Cersei's behavior and psychology than she does with Catelyn's. The two women have significant internalized misogyny, resent their limitations as women in society, and cow their male partners for not being manly enough. Each woman states she would prefer to be a man for the sake of having a man's privileges. Lady Macbeth even invokes the spirits to unsex her, to strip her of all feminine qualities, which she considers weak. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts, and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 5. Some will erroneously claim that Macbeth is a misogynistic play because of passages like this, but those critics are neglecting to see it as the author's own critique on society. While using the witch archetype as a central figure in his play, Shakespeare embraces gender and misogyny as main themes, and by the end, presents the danger and destructiveness of rejecting feminine-coded qualities like guilt, grief, and remorse. Martin also interrogates certain societal values of Westeros in similar fashion. Cersei and Lady Stoneheart are Mother Witch characters who were once hopeful young maidens, then nurturing mothers. Their characters now aren't just women gone bad, but a macabre expression of feminine rage in a repressive patriarchal system. The crone-witch. "Please," begged Melara, "just tell our futures, then we'll go." "Some are here who have no futures," Maggie muttered in her terrible deep voice. A Feast for Crows, Cersei 7. As mentioned before, the crone-witch takes the crone's quality of wisdom and powers it up to prophecy. She often speaks in riddles, like the witches to Macbeth, Maggie the Frog to Cersei, and the ghost of Highheart. The crone is normally a trustworthy old lady. In contrast, the crone-witch and her powers are not to be trusted. Daenerys even thinks on Mirri Maz Duur as one of the 3 great betrayals of her life. A big question concerning all these crone witches is whether they have any gift of prophecy at all, or whether such prophecies are self-fulfilling. There are 2 answers to this. 1. Yes, of course they have the gift of prophecy. It's fundamental to their archetype. 2. Well, it depends. It's the mortal perception that makes the immortal and supernatural realm what it is. The latter point is especially applicable to the Macbeth witches, who are farther removed from the realm of humanity and represent nothing in a way. They are construed as fantastical, vanishing bubbles, and melted as breath into the wind. As Macbeth says after hearing their prophecy, "This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. Nothing is what is not." Yet, it is his perception of them that makes them what they are. He eventually chooses to believe in and pursue the prophecies, setting the wheel of fate into motion. But, as a general rule, the wheel of fate is not kind to those who seek out the crone-witch and attempt to manipulate her prophecies. What characters crave from the crone-witch is wish fulfillment, but to dabble in the realm of the magical comes at a great cost, usually sanity or life. Lady Macbeth goes mad and kills herself. Macbeth dies, his legacy non-existent and his memory besmirched. In ASOIAF, Cersei has her fortune told, but what she hears haunts her. Mirri Maz Duur tells Daenerys that she can bring Drogo back to life, but in a life-for-life exchange, Dany's baby is born hideously deformed and dies, and Drogo is an undead horror. As for Stannis, it seems his psychological suffering is just beginning as a result of the sacrifices he's made to Melisandre's Red God. A mortal crossing into the magical realm is not just a structural transgression, but also a psychological regression. Characters are drawn to magical thinking because it validates the id, which operates on the pleasure principle, wishes fulfilled instantaneously by thought. However, children learn at a young age that they can't have nice things at no cost. So, when characters in literature turn to magic to tell or fix the future, psychologically these characters are actually regressing into their past and into infantile behaviors, seeking instant gratification at great costs. We vividly see time turning against Macbeth and Lady Macbeth as they chase the future. Lady Macbeth's past sinful deeds drive her mad with guilt. In Macbeth's case, past, present, and future all seem to bleed together until he is absolutely numb. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Macbeth Act 5, Scene 5. Macbeth has become like the witches, nothing, and that is the closest to the supernatural realm and immortality that his ambition carries him. Some final thoughts. It bears mentioning again that these are not strict categorizations, nor has every aspect of every witch been explained according to this triple aspect model. Beyond the mother witch, there is a lot to say about the mothering and reproductive imagery that often accompanies crone witches. The witch's cauldron is like a womb, round and big, where things get put in and come out as something else. Likewise, Miri Mazdur is a crone witch with her magic powers and the promises she makes to Dany, ultimately betraying her, but she also serves as a midwife, delivering a deformed monster baby from Dany's womb. Not to mention Melisandre's unique role as a mother witch and how she births a shadow baby. In general, a lot more time could be spent talking about each of these witchy characters and how they present as all three sub-archetypes. A more in-depth discussion of this model might also discuss how witches usher in life crises for the characters who interact with them, and the specific nature of these crises according to which sub-archetype. For example, the maiden-witch with her seductive power ushers in a crisis of passion versus dispassion, Stannis deciding to fight for his claim to the throne with Melisandre's help. The mother-witch causes a crisis of attachment versus independence, Sansa coming into her own after surviving Cersei. And the crone-witch ushers in a crisis of knowledge versus uncertainty, which we've touched on. For now, this broad analysis of witches in terms of maiden, mother, and crone offers a unique lens through which to view A Song of Ice and Fire and Macbeth. The witch triple aspect model illuminates themes of gender, good versus evil, as well as what can be examined as the author's own critique of these concepts in society. And of course, a psychoanalytical perspective has the potential to shed light on the reader's own response and connection to their story. After all, the real interest of Shakespeare's and Martin's stories is not in the archetypes and fantastical elements themselves, but in what they represent for the human condition, a topic of bottomless depth.